Welcome. We're going to officially get started the 2024 elections and beyond, what you need to know to protect your assets. This is a Gilfix in the Poll webinar. Of course, you can also follow us on YouTube. This may be streaming on YouTube. I'm not sure. We always try our best. And if it is on YouTube, welcome on YouTube as well. So as we jump in, let's just take a moment to see how we're feeling, right? What got you to join us here today? We very much appreciate that you're giving us some of your time and your attention, two of the most valuable things we have in life, time and attention. You can't buy more time. You can't buy more attention. Thank you so much for joining us. Did these resonate? Do you feel just sort of overwhelmed about the state of politics and the financial markets and your assets? Do you feel confused? Do you feel worried about the future, about AI? Taking your jobs or your kids' jobs, your grandkids' jobs, about tax laws changing? Do you feel exhausted by politics and partisan battles back and forth? And you just want to feel a sense of security that you work so hard. This might resonate. You work so hard to build up what you have, and you just want to preserve it for future generations. You know, that we hear this all the time. People feel overwhelmed and scared and anxious. That's going around. And we truly believe that the information that we're going to go over in this talk today could be worth, and I'm not exaggerating, millions of dollars to you and to future generations, even if you don't consider yourself wealthy. We're going to give some examples of, well, even if you consider yourself middle class or upper middle class, whatever, the information we're going to go through can truly have multi-generational 6 or 7 figure impacts on your future and your family's future. 3 points I want to make. And maybe if you don't take anything else from this talk or this webinar, these are all you need to take home, maybe, perhaps. 1, hope is not a strategy. Hope that everything is going to work out and be fine, whether or not I do planning or whether or not I take the right steps. That's not a strategy. That's from my management consultant days. You'll hear variations of this, but hoping for the best is not a strategy. Have a strategy. 2, control what you can control. Like many of you in the audience, I have been through some crazy challenges in my life. My wife has been through some crazy health challenges. I'm a cancer survivor. She's a cancer survivor. And you know, when you're facing really challenging situations, there's a lot that you cannot control, and you have to focus on what you can. And what we're going to talk about here today, this is in that we can control it area. And lastly, there are a few high leverage moments in life where making one good decision can impact your future and your family's future for many generations to come. Think about the decision for who you married, or the career you chose, or to buy that house that you first bought, or to move to a different area. These are single decisions that reverberated for you, probably for many years and maybe for multiple generations. The issues we're going to go over here today are those high leverage issues. So we hope you take some action from what we're talking about here today. On that note, so this is Michael Gilfix. I'm Mark Gilfix. We are a father-son team, as you probably can tell, and we're going to lead you through a lot here today. So, Mike, I'm going to turn over the next step of this. Why don't you go over our subject matter here today and what we're going to cover?
So this is basically our agenda for the day. We're going to certainly focus on the estate tax, what's in place now, what's likely to happen. We're going to emphasize the California property tax cliff, Proposition 19, and its astonishing negative impact on any plans a family member has to keep real property in the family after someone passes away. Briefly, we're going to talk about some of the potential impacts on Medicare and Medicaid, and we call it the secret tool to protect future generations. We'll certainly come back to that. We're going to have some action steps for you, some deadlines. We're practical, as Mark said. Got to have a strategy, hoping some of these laws that you don't like are going to change. That ain't going to work. And you can quote me. So let's be proactive here.
Yeah, we have to point out a couple things. This is a nonpartisan talk. We're not here to take sides on Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever. We're here to give you information. We're not taking sides here. We're messengers. And this is for educational purposes only. This is not legal advice. You have to work with us directly for us to give you any legal advice. This doesn't create an attorney-client relationship. Don't try this at home, but this is meant to inform and empower you. And just about our firm, if you don't know us, we are Gilfix and Lopole Associates based in Palo Alto, California. We've been around for over 40 years now, thought leaders in the space. Michael Gilfix and Francis Lopole are incredible leaders in our field. They've published countless articles. Mike has written many books. Mike and I have published a few books. We've written many articles. We served thousands of families in California, and we've educated hundreds of thousands, if not well, probably not millions, maybe millions actually at this point. And our goal is to provide extraordinary value and peace of mind for all the families we work with. We want to be part of your team if we can be. I've been featured in the national media, and we continue to think about this. So we've written a book about estate taxes. So this is the older version. Mike and I co-authored a new version, Beat Estate Tax Forever. And it's about just all the estate planning issues we're going to talk about. We've written books on special needs planning, long-term care planning. And so we really want to spread the word. There's a lot of ignorance about this. So let's jump in. 2024 elections. So I think you may have heard about these. They were in the news just a little bit. But we know what happened, right? So it's a Republican sweep. But it was there's a very narrow margin in the House. The Republicans have full control of the Senate, obviously the presidency. The House is a very narrow majority. So Mike, please lead us through where we are today, and then we'll talk about where we think we're going.
Sure. So our primary focus will be on tax issues for the next few minutes, at the federal level.
Yeah, so we're not going to be talking about income tax, by the way. We're focusing on estate and gift tax.
Right. Yeah. We're not CPAs. Income tax we know a lot about, but not enough to present ourselves as experts. Okay. The estate tax. This is the tax that befalls a larger estate when someone passes away. The current level of estate tax protection is very high. 2025, it became $13.99 million per individual. So for a married couple, that's like $28 million. So the vast majority are not exposed to the estate tax under current law. The tax is punishing. If someone is exposed to the tax, it's 40%. So this would be anything over the level of protection, unless planning is done. Okay. We have this thing called the annual exclusion. Most people still think of it in terms of a $10,000 giveaway each year that you can do without having to report it. Last year it was $18,000. This year it increased to $19,000. You can give that away to any number of people. It's not a reportable event for anybody. Okay. Stepped up basis, which we'll get into a little bit more later, but there was concern that the stepped up basis would be eliminated because of some proposals that were on the table. Looks like that's not going to happen. This has a profound impact on the ability of survivors after someone passes away to sell appreciated assets without exposure to capital gains tax. Next point, there were also proposals on the table to eliminate a lot of the strategies that have historically and successfully been used to reduce estate tax exposure for individuals who do have exposure to the estate tax. Discounting, the term we have in quotes, is at the heart and soul of so much of the planning that we do. Partnerships, asset transfers, on and on, so many other topics. Prop 19, that is in place. We're going to go through that rather exhaustively and talk about solutions. We're all about solutions. Okay. So what's next? Next, we have the probability. Well, I shouldn't say that. At the end of 2025, the current tax laws expire. These protections that we've talked about, they expire. It's going to take an act of Congress to extend them further. So we're going to revert to lower numbers of protection unless there's new legislation. And that means that the level of protection per individual will be cut down to about $7 million per person as of January 1, 2026, roughly $14 million per individual, seven per individual. The 40% tax rate, that would remain intact, but it'll be a dramatic change. If we know that's going to happen, and we don't, that it's going to revert, many more people obviously are going to be exposed to the estate tax. I mean, still a whole lot. It's still a high level of protection. It's still $14 million for a couple, 7 for an individual. But we have to keep a careful eye on this, and to say the least, we're going to do that.
Yeah, and as Mike talked about, one thing that was not changed in the selection was that Prop 19 issue, the property tax issue. That was not on the ballot, did not change. It's still there. We're going to spend some time on that property tax issue later. We think that's the biggest issue for many California families. So the current law is expiring on December 31st, 2025, unless it's extended. Let's talk about where we may be headed given the new federal government and who's in charge. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah. Well, it is probable. I'd put it at 85% likely that the current estate tax law, that the whole package of legislation, which include many, many tax protections, really, for those with larger estates, it's highly probable that it will be extended. It will take cooperation on the part of the Senate, which we think is a foregone conclusion. The House is dicey. Mark, I think, has a couple of observations about that in a minute from some folks who are really integral, really have a lot of power in Washington. So we're really not sure what's going to happen. Again, probable it'll change. A really tough thing is, when will it change? Will it happen earlier in 2025? Will it be at the very end, which makes it very hard to plan? So we have to think protectively and comprehensively. It's too late to start doing planning in December of 2025 if the law is not going to change if someone is ill. So we have to be careful about this cliff, this drop off. We have to watch it very carefully. Again, we believe the stepped up basis is not going to go away, even though, again, it was proposed that it would be eliminated. That's probably not going to happen. So Mark, what about this slim margin and the deficit hawks in the House and all of that?
Yeah. So if you observe this stuff closely, the House, the GOP, the Republican Party, has a very small majority, and as a result of some of incoming President Trump's cabinet picks, it was made even more narrow. I think it's like a 4 or 5 seat majority. And that means that a very small number of members of Congress can really hold things up and really exert a lot of influence over the process. And there's a lot of division. The Republican Party, like the Democratic Party, is not completely cohesive. There are many people who have very different views, and there are deficit hawks who are very different from other members of the Trump wing of the party. So there are parts of the Republican Party that are very fiscally conservative that are probably not going to want to agree to tax cuts or to extend tax cuts unless they're big spending cuts. But there are other Republicans who don't want to do that. So I think the key here is we don't know exactly what will happen. Yes, I think, Mike, I agree that it is very likely that some version of the Tax Cut and Job Act will be extended, but there has been talk of still changing the exemption and not just sticking with where it is. There have been some members of Congress who've talked about maybe lowering it a little bit so it has less of an impact on the deficit. So we don't really know, though, because if a few Republican members of the House hold out and say, hey, we don't want spiraling deficits, and let's be clear, the U.S. budget deficit is spiraling. I mean, it's getting out of control. It's actually going to be a big problem. And so some Republicans may push back and say, hey, we can't cut taxes or continue this unless X, Y, and Z is also done. So it's very possible to get held up, and it might not stay at that $14 million per person level after the end of this year. So we have to keep a close eye on it. And when it comes to timing, I just saw this quote literally in an article this morning. This was from Ted Cruz, Republican from Texas, as many of you I'm sure know, whether you like him or don't like him. He has a lot of power, and I think this take is accurate. The process of negotiating the details of this new tax bill will take many months. It's incredibly complicated. There are trade-offs, and you have differing views in the Senate and the House. It will be a long and extended process. So there are predictions, but here's the thing that we have to be really careful of. If there is no new tax bill that becomes clear earlier in the year, it might happen late in this year, in 2025. So we have to be on top of this ahead of time. So we'd recommend, if you're concerned about this, if it's an issue for you, we'd want to meet before that so we can anticipate different outcomes. Because as Mike said, if you're waiting until December of 2025 and the law is changing dramatically, there will not be time for us to help you. We're going to be inundated. So we got to stay on top of this ahead of time, and that's it. Don't wait till the last minute. So let me go back to sharing some slides here. What does this mean in other areas? So there are other areas that are probably going to be changed. So one area that we're keeping a close eye on, just for for California residents, is the SALT deduction, the state and local taxes deduction. So currently, you can only deduct $10,000 in state and local taxes. That's California income tax, property taxes from your federal income taxes. You used to be able to deduct all of it. Now it's only $10,000. There's been talk of increasing that. So that would be a good thing for most Californians who have property. This also puts a higher, this also shows just how important property tax planning is. Right now, even if you're paying $40,000 a year in property taxes, you can only deduct $10,000 of that against your federal income taxes. That might be increased. We don't know yet. There's some Republicans who are pushing back against this. Trump has said he is actually in favor of increasing the SALT deduction. We have to keep an eye on this, right? So we don't know yet. We also need to keep an eye on California. So we talked about the federal estate tax exemption, currently 13.99 million per person, may be extended. California does not have a state level estate tax. Oregon does, New York does, Washington State does. We're one of the states that does not have this. But this is not on the front burner for our legislature, but always keep an eye on this. So there have been attempts in the past for California to impose a state level estate tax. That is not here now. Just keep an eye on that. We don't see it in the near term. That's something we're very closely following. And just really importantly, the GOP control of the Congress and the Senate and the presidency has no impact on Prop 19 or California property taxes. That's a state matter. There is nothing the federal government can do as it relates to Prop 19, other than, right now you're limited on deducting state income taxes and state property taxes there. So what does this mean? What actions should you take right now based on where we are with all this uncertainty? I think it's focused. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, first of all, we're talking about, let's call it high level issues so far. Let's not forget for a moment how important it is to make sure that your basic documents, we'll go through them in just a moment, making sure that your trust, power of attorney, advance directive, your basic documents are in place, have appropriate protective language, take maximum advantage of the laws as they are now interpreted. So we have to watch everything that we're doing. But again, let's not lose sight of the basics. We all in California have to be thinking about property tax planning. We're going to emphasize this. We're going to re-emphasize it. There's so much misunderstanding. We want you to be very clear about what you can do to avoid these horrific property tax increases that will perhaps eliminate the ability of your kids to retain property when you pass away. So we're going to say it again, and we're going to say it again. Don't wait for the last minute. We already have clients who have made appointments to meet with us in October of 2025. That's smart, maybe, but it's going to fill up, and you just need to keep an eye and be proactive. So let's go to what those core documents are for just a moment and touch. Make sure you have all of those in place.
Yeah, so think of this as a little estate planning 101. I know that's not the talk of the focus of this talk, but what are the 3 core documents that you need to have up to date? Everyone in California who has any assets should have a living trust, and the structure, not the focus of this talk, but the structure needs to be optimized if you're a married couple. There's an AB structure versus a non-AB, and that can have a massive impact on your taxes, or at least as taxes for your kids when they inherit property as it relates to capital gains taxes. If you have the wrong trust structure, you might be unnecessarily exposing your kids to hundreds of thousands or more in capital gains tax exposure. So we need to make sure your living trust is up to date. You have the right backup trustees, going to the right place. Durable powers of attorney, that governs your day-to-day finances if you're incapacitated. When's the last time you looked at that? We recommend updating those at least every 5 years. They become stale, is the parlance in the legal world. If they're more than 5 years old, it means that if your family needs to use those to help manage your affairs, if you're incapacitated, older documents often cause big problems at banks. They don't like to work with those. And it also should not just be a check the box form. Many people come in and say, I have a power of attorney. They downloaded a form where they work with an attorney where they just check boxes to give powers. That is not enough for many families. There are a myriad of other issues related to property tax planning, estate tax planning, supporting your kids that we think need to be addressed in powers of attorney, and advanced healthcare directives. So when was the last time you looked at that? That's where you can authorize the individuals who can make medical decisions for you if you can't make decisions in a hospital setting. And as I said, the proper living trust structure can have a 6 or 7 figure impact on your estate. So it's really, really important that these are updated. So even if you're not worried about state taxes per se, or if you're well below those limits, and most people, let's face it, are below a $28 million couple limit. It's a good problem to have if you have it. But even if not, let's take a fresh look at your documents so we can absolutely help to make sure they're in a good place, just for the issues that come up for every family as parents or grandparents get older. So talk to us. We don't know where the estate tax law is going. We think it will likely be extended, but there's a lot of uncertainty out there. So I think that's the key takeaway. Lots of uncertainty, and we're here to help. Let's control what we can control and make sure that our core plans are up to date. Let's now transition to what we think is probably the biggest tax issue for any Californians who have owned property or primary residence and or rental property or any other property in California, and for families who want to keep it in the family for multiple generations. And this is a big problem. It's the California property tax cliff, and hint, it's already here. And by cliff, we mean an instance where taxes could actually go up a cliff, skyrocket. So that cliff is here. If you own a California home and you've owned it for a number of years, or if you own rental property you've owned for a number of years, you probably want to preserve it for your kids and or grandkids, or maybe other family members. It doesn't have to be your children. So I'd ask this question of yourself. Do you own property in California with low property taxes? Do you want to preserve it for future generations, for family members? We talked at the beginning of this about high leverage moments and decisions you can make, and this is a big one. Taking the right steps now could have a multi-decade positive impact on your family's financial future in a truly extraordinary way. So we're going to go through why that is. So don't miss this opportunity. If you have low assessed value properties in California, and by that I mean property taxes are based on a much lower value than what it's worth if you sold it, this next section is crucial. And we have more and more families who are working with us on this. Like every week, we're having more families realizing the urgency here and starting to work on this. And it's about saving the home. So Mike, we think about the home as more than just a structure.
This is a really important point. We're talking about tax and assets, but your family home, the residence, it means something much more than dollars. It has symbolism for the family. It's the nest. Kids grew up there. I mean, our kids were born at home. So it's got all this symbolic significance that we really have to honor and think about. And losing it, when the kids assume they're going to keep the family home and then they can't, because of a dramatic property tax increase, it is emotionally difficult. It's not just a pocketbook. I mean, we've seen tears many, many times when folks didn't plan and then they confronted this problem.
So along those lines, we have a subject called Calling Us Too Late. So our YouTube channel, Gilfix Law YouTube, one of our most viewed videos is a presentation I gave a couple years ago on Prop 19. It's like we're getting over 180,000 views of this 20-minute presentation I gave. So we're known pretty well around the state for Prop 19 planning. We can help you anywhere in the state, by the way. It's not just the Bay Area. We can help you in San Diego or Wairika, anywhere in between. We get a lot of calls now, though, from people who see the video, and they call us like, hey, I have a property tax problem. And I'll just give an example. This happens probably once a month. I'll get a call. Someone wants to set a meeting with us to discuss it. And they say, hey, I inherited the house from my dad last year. And this is a specific call I had last month. A younger woman called and said, I inherited my dad's house. I don't make a lot of money. I'm a teacher. And everything seemed fine until I got a supplemental bill for over $18,000. I can't afford that supplemental tax bill. And she said, what can we do about this? Like, can you help us? Can you help us? Can we eliminate this problem? And the answer is no. She called us too late. And by too late, I mean, the planning steps have to be done while mom and or dad are still alive. If you wait until after a parent passes away, there's very little we can do. There's a partial exemption Mike will talk about, but as far as keeping taxes where they are, that opportunity is gone. So we have to plan ahead, err on the side of caution, like start planning before you think you'll need it if this is an issue, because we don't want you to be one of those families that calls us too late. So Mike can talk now about what the law is and why it's just such a massive issue for many, again, middle-class families, right? People who do not consider themselves high net worth, who don't think they need a lawyer for tax planning. Well, we're going to show you why you probably do. So it wasn't on the ballot.
Yeah, it wasn't on the ballot. When many folks started to appreciate what Prop 19 does in terms of property tax increases, they were upset. They tried to gather signatures, get it on the ballot. For 2 years now, there have been efforts to get them on the ballot, and it's been unsuccessful. So we don't see anything on the horizon indicating that this is going to go away. So again, if you own your home, if you own rental property, you have to be aware of this. You have to deeply understand the impact. Think about steps you can take. We'll go through that in just a few minutes. And to be sure as possible that your goals are respected and achieved. Again, keeping property in the family. So let's emphasize, Prop 19 is not legislation. It was a voter initiative that changed the California Constitution. So the significance of that is you can call your state legislature all day long. They can't fix it. It's going to take another voter initiative. And as indicated a moment ago, the likelihood of that is extraordinarily small. There are many forces at work in the political world in California that like Prop 19, that like the increase in property taxes. So it's by no means clear that most people would want to get rid of it if they could. So if your kids live at home, there's a partial protection that we'll go through in a couple of minutes. But if you have a rental property or a vacation home, there are zero protections in place, zero protections.
And as we said, hope is not a strategy. Hoping that this gets overturned, we don't have a crystal ball. It's certainly possible. We think it's unlikely. Hope is not a strategy. The next few minutes of this presentation, we're going to present you with what you can do, what it means, and then what you can do.
So here's what the law was before Prop 19 became law a couple of years ago, well, 3 years ago. All right. Before Prop 19, we had Proposition 58, which extended the famous Proposition 13. It said two things. First, it said that your residence, your family home, could be passed along to your kid or kids without a property tax increase, regardless of whether or not they lived in it. It was easy. It was obvious. It also said that you could pass along another $1 million in assessed value in real property, again, without a property tax increase. So you could have had a $3 million rental that you purchased many years ago where the assessed value was $400,000. That would be passed along also without a property tax increase. So in the vast majority of cases, folks were avoiding property tax increases because of Prop 58. Okay, after Prop 19 became law, Prop 58 was eviscerated. It was eliminated. Number one, what about the residents? No longer does it go to the kids regardless. If a child, and only if a child makes the residence his or her residence, then there is a partial protection. Around here, it's only partial. In some areas, it's complete. But in the Bay Area, where property values are so high, it's only partial. So the rule basically says that if a child makes it the residence, the first $1 million in assessed value is forgiven. We believe it's actually going to be 1.022 million. There's a built-in I wouldn't call it an inflation rider, but it increases slightly each year. This is all up, by the way, to the Board of Equalization. They hold the keys to the treasure chest on an interpretation of all of these things. So there's a partial protection for the residents, maybe. Simple example, by the way. Mark's going to go through some examples.
We'll go through some examples.
Let's do that. Yeah. Okay. Other real property, no protections whatsoever. There is no protection of $1 million in assessed value. That's gone. Vacation home, rental home, complete reassessment. Dramatic increases for most of us who've held property for many, many years. So it takes planning. So let's dig in, Mark.
Well, one solution is, this is not really Prop 19 specific, but we have a lot of clients in this situation where, let's say you have a longtime partner and you're living together, but you're not married and you want to leave that property to your partner. Well, get married. If you're married, there is an exemption from a property tax increase. That's not Prop 19 specific, but hey, getting married means that if a property goes from one spouse to the other, there is no reassessment. So hey, if you're living with someone long term and you hope to keep taxes low for your partner after you're gone, get married. That's, easy wedding advice, right? That's not the best reason to get married. Please don't do it just for that. There are other actually tax reasons to get married, but there's also some penalties, like the income tax penalties for getting married. So do it for your heart's content rather than for tax reasons, but this is a solution. But let's talk about what's at stake here. And I always like to show, I'm a former management consultant. I'm an Excel nerd. So I created Excel spreadsheets about this. So this is an example. I'm going to jump back into that slide in just a second, but let's say that you have a house that's worth $3.3 million, which is a huge number. In many parts of California, that is actually a very big house. But in parts of San Diego or West LA or the Bay Area, that might just be a pretty normal family home. It's crazy how expensive houses are in California. So a $3.3 million fair market value home with an assessed value for tax purposes of $300,000. So let's say you bought the house 30 years ago and it's just gone up a lot. So your taxes are very low. What happens when mom and dad pass away and it goes to a child? And let's say that a child moves into the house. What happens with property taxes? So let's go over what this means in 1 year. And then more importantly, let's go over what this means over the long term. And this is where, again, this is a high leverage moment. So a $3.3 million value home, $300,000 assessed value. Let's say mom and dad pass away. It goes to their eldest daughter. She moves in. She moves in. She makes it their residence. She gets that partial protection of $1 million. That's not going to be reassessed, but it still gets reassessed at $2.3 million. Property taxes go up from around $3,300 a year to over $25,000 per year. That's every year. That is a $22,000 plus tax increase per year. That's not a one-time increase, and it goes up 2% a year from there. So over 5 years, that's over $100,000 in extra taxes. Over 10 years, it's over $240,000 in extra taxes. Over 30 years, if your child just keeps that home for the rest of their life, that's almost $900,000 in extra property taxes that your child will pay if you let this reassessment happen. And that's if they're living in the family home and get that partial protection. Let's say they don't move in, or let's say that it's a rental property, because if it's not mom and dad's primary residence, then there is no protection, even if a child moves in. Or let's say they don't move in right away, or they move in and then later move out and the state finds out. Well, you don't even have that $1 million in protection. So again, and you can adjust these numbers up or down, say it's a $2 million house or $4 million house or $1.5 million. Again, $3.3 million house. Let's say it wasn't the residence, or let's say it's a rental. Here, property taxes would go up from $3,300 a year to over $36,000 per year. And again, it goes up 2% a year from there. So in this case, if it's a rental property in the same numbers, we're talking about over $360,000 in extra property taxes over 10 years. Over 30 years, almost $1.34 million in extra property taxes for a family that did not plan ahead versus one that does. I mean, that is a staggering difference. We work with a lot of families with special needs issues, or a child with special needs. Let's say you want to leave a property for the benefit of that child, either to live in or as a rental to support them. I mean, $1.34 million. Think about the difference that can make in your child's life. And the thing here is, some people for public policy reasons are in favor of taxes and all that. But I can tell you one thing. You don't get any extra services for paying higher taxes than if you keep the taxes low. It's not like you're paying more taxes, so the state will be more attentive to you, right? So you get nothing back for this. So again, I think the numbers are critical. For this one property, over 10 years, over $360,000 difference, 20 years, $800,000 difference, 30 years, almost $1.34 million in extra property taxes. And we talked about that state and local taxes deduction. Your kids may not even be able to deduct most of this against their income taxes. So to pay $1.38 million in property taxes, they may have to earn almost $2 million net of other income taxes to pay this. So the numbers are even worse than they seem. So it's really a massive impact. Even again, if you don't consider yourself high net worth, or even many middle class families come to us for this type of planning. If you are concerned about property taxes, if you own a house and or rental property, and the assessed value is significantly lower than the fair market value, by that, if it's your primary residence, if it's more than a $1 million difference, or any rental properties, contact us. We can at least talk about this. Maybe you decide you don't need it, but we can at least give you the information you need to make an educated decision. And again, this is a high leverage impact decision. Let's control what we can control. We can't control what's happening with the law. We can control this. So contact us, gilfix.com. Easy to find us if this is a concern. If you're an existing client, hey, let's review this for you. Let's transition now to a different subject. Another area that we're keeping a close eye on.
Now, this is just spend a few minutes on Medicare and Medicaid. There's been no legislative changes, but if we talk about the implications of the election, we have to think about this. Okay. President-elect Trump has said Medicare is not going to be touched. Every candidate says they're not going to touch Social Security or Medicare. They view that as the third rail, even though those programs are going bankrupt. They all say, we're not going to touch it. We're not going to change it. Well, Medicaid is different. At the national level, we have Medicare, which you get automatically when you get Social Security, but Medicaid is a needs-based program. So there is discretion there at the federal level in terms of regulations, legislation, and so forth. Cuts are on the table for the federal Medicaid program. In California, we call it Medi-Cal. So when you read about Medicaid cuts at the national level, we have to think about, again, how it's going to play down here at the local level. 2 days ago, a couple of leading House Republicans developed some plans that would cut $2.3 trillion in Medicaid spending, probably not over just 1 year. But it means that they are already looking at ways to achieve this. They want to offset the cost of extending the tax relief because they're very big on balancing the budget, deficit hawks, and all of that. So again, it's a lot of moving targets. We don't know what's going to happen. State control could be dramatically reduced, which means that some of the clearly liberal policies of the state of California for Medi-Cal could be eliminated rather than letting the state really spend what it wants and then the federal government paying, I think it's 80% of that. They might shift, and here's a big item, they might shift to what are called block grants, which means each state gets a certain number of dollars and that's it. And then it's up to the state as to how to administer it. So that might sound like it's not a big deal. It's a huge deal. It would result in dramatic cutbacks in Medi-Cal coverage. So in our world, we're not so focused on disability issues when somebody gets hurt on the job. Our issues are special needs. Our issues are long-term care. So right now, California, really important point. California changed the law last year. If you enter a nursing home tomorrow, don't you dare. But if you do, if you have no choice, you're going to qualify for Medi-Cal right away. Last year, California eliminated the asset cap for eligibility for the Medi-Cal program. I mean, only state in the country. So maybe that went too far. We kind of think it did go too far because there's only so many Medi-Cal dollars now. But again, if we have dramatic cutbacks, we have to really worry about this. How is everybody going to manage the cost of long-term care in particular? Home care services, the immigration policies that are on the block, the chopping block, they have a profound impact as well. The vast majority of caregivers in your homes and in facilities are from other countries. They're relatively new immigrants. So if that population is diminished dramatically and more are not allowed into the country, again, it's going to have a direct impact on quality of care and the cost of care because it's going to come out of your pocket and my pocket, not the Medi-Cal program. So again, all of these things relate to one another. We don't want to isolate one issue out and only focus on it. And frankly, that's some of the secret sauce in our office. We understand Medi-Cal. We understand long-term care. We understand special needs planning, tax planning. Putting all of that together objectively is rare to find in any office. Hey, there's a lot of things we don't know, but all of the issues that we're talking about today, we do understand them and we do know how to integrate them and think protectively on your behalf. We're keeping a careful eye on everything, to say the least.
Yeah. And I think the importance of integrated legal and financial planning is also crucial. We'll talk about that a little bit more, but having that team, everybody's working together and we're working on building that team for our clients, but making sure that you're coordinating your legal planning with your financial planning, insurance planning is going to be more important. We just can't rely on programs as they are today. Let's now transition to a subject that I think is relevant for really every family in California who has, a home or any assets. And that's how can you protect assets for future generations? And we think there are some tools that have been used by ultra high net worth families for many, many decades. We think everybody should be able to use these tools. So as we kind of call it, what is the secret trust? What is the secret trust of the 1% that the 1% uses to protect future generations? And why should we all think about this? So this is about protecting what you're leaving to your kids from providing protections for inherited assets. So Mike, what is the best way to protect assets for future generations to make sure they're not at risk?
Well, the simplest thing is, you don't leave them anything. Leave nothing to your kids. Leave absolutely nothing to your kids. That will avoid all kinds of problems, might create a few, but that's one option. So what might be a better alternative here, Mark?
Well, actually, that is what we recommend, as the next generation. I don't like the sound of that on the surface. But actually, smart families don't leave anything to their kids. But we're not saying they're not leaving anything for the benefit of their kids. What can you do to supercharge your plan? So as Mike says, you don't leave anything to your kids. How can you take your plan from the ground floor to the mountaintops? So what are we talking about here? Well, Mike wrote an article in Bottom Line Personal Magazine and National Magazine, has to get vetted by multiple experts. And what are we talking about? Dynasty trusts, or as our firm calls them, family protection trusts. So this is not a new tool, although we have new versions of this. But when you hear the term dynasty trust, what image do you have in your mind? When I first heard that term, I don't know, maybe you're probably thinking of something like this. A dynastic family with a mansion in the countryside and teams of butlers. Because I don't have a dynasty, right? So we don't like that term. But these tools are not just for billionaires. Again, our version of these is our family protection trust. That's our Gilfix and the Pole version of dynasty trust. So, what are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about leaving assets not to your children, but instead creating trusts for them and leaving money to these trusts. So if you had two kids, you'd have your living trust. Instead of leaving money to your son and your daughter, you create a family protection trust for your son and a family protection trust for your daughter. They should be separate entities, separate documents. Why would you do that? Why don't I go through three of the biggest reasons why we really strongly recommend these? And they're really about protecting future generations. I'll pull up this slide. So divorce is a big problem, right? If you leave money to your child, technically anything they inherit is separate property, but it often gets commingled. And if it's commingled at all, it's lost. Leaving assets to a family protection trust keeps those inherited assets separate. If it's properly managed separate, it's safe. It should be very safe in a divorce settlement. So rather than your child's significant other taking half the money and giving it to another family, it stays in your side of the family for multiple generations. If your child is sued, and we are very worried about the impact of artificial intelligence on the number of lawsuits, America's already over the top obsessed with lawsuits, right? There's every day in the news, there's another lawsuit, someone's suing someone else. And I have so many friends who face frivolous lawsuits. I mean, it's out of control. Not to say all lawsuits are frivolous, but there's a lot of them and a lot of desperate lawyers. And AI is making it easier for lawyers to file more lawsuits more efficiently, right? So I think it's going to get worse before it gets better, if it ever does. If your child is sued and they inherit money directly, that money is completely exposed. If it's in one of these trusts, you're creating some protection. Like nothing is 100%. We're not guaranteeing it's safe in all cases, but it's a lot harder for someone suing your child to go after money that's held in an irrevocable trust, like a family protection trust. So you're providing some protections there. It's a lot better than not having the trust. But this is really, really powerful. And even if you don't consider yourself high net worth, you got to look into the future for this. If you leave money to your child, they inherit it. It's part of their estate. They hopefully will earn money on their own. All that they earn, all they inherited, if they inherit directly, is exposed to estate taxes when they pass away and when money goes to your grandchildren or future grandchildren. If it's in a family protection trust, subject to some limits, it's not part of their estate. So it's not exposed to estate taxes when your kids pass away. So when you look at numbers now, let's say your child inherits $1 million and they invest that pretty well. It grows to 2 million or 4 million. If you leave that to them directly, 30, 40, 50% of that could be lost before it goes to grandkids. If it's in a family protection trust, maybe none of it is exposed to estate taxes. All of it's protected. So even if you don't consider yourself high net worth now, you have to look 10, 20, 30, 40 years into the future. And hopefully that money grows over that time. So, and we don't know what estate tax laws will be like in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So it's a way to provide some protections there. And you might be thinking, well, Mark and Mike, this sounds cool, but I don't want to make my life too complicated. I don't want to make my kids' lives too complicated. I don't want them to have to answer to banks or trustees. If you think your kids are able to do it, they can be their own trustees. They can largely be in control of these trusts and use them for their support with a lot of flexibility. So it's a wonderful tool. They last for about 100 years in California for 2 or 3 generations. It's really about protecting the grandkids or future grandkids. And we just think these are not just for the ultra wealthy. We think everybody should have these. So talk to us if you want to add these to your plan. If you already have one, we can always revisit, make sure the structure is good. But they're just amazing tools. So we've covered a lot here today. I want to give you kind of some summary thoughts and notes. So I have an image here of Steph Curry, and this is Steph with different members of his advisory team. He's the best shooter who ever lived, right? I don't think that's debatable. He has a strength and conditioning coach. He has a personal trainer. He has his head coach. This doesn't even get into his financial and legal team, right? He has a huge team, but the best in the world have teams behind them. everybody should have that advisory team. You don't need a full-time team, right? But you should have advisors that can help you through the landmines in the legal world, the financial world, the accounting world. And we're big believers that whenever possible, it should be integrated. But just don't think of yourself as, I don't need a lawyer. Like, most families need some legal help. It doesn't have to be all the time, but for these big high leverage decisions, you should have advisors. So we are working on building integrated legal and financial teams for our clients. So it's going beyond the basics, and it's really thinking comprehensively about your estate tax, estate planning issues, property tax issues, and just making sure that your financial plan is integrated with your legal plan, meaning are beneficiaries right? Are accounts titled correctly? Are we thinking about long-term care and tax issues the right way? So we are building something called the Gilfix and the Pole Family Office Program. For existing clients, talk to us about that. It's where you can work with an integrated team. And if you work with advisors who are in our network, we all work together. And it's a really wonderful win-win approach that we're taking. A lot of our clients are now working in this structure and integrated team. If you have questions about this, let us know. We can do free reviews of your situation with the financial advisors who are in this. If you have a financial advisor you love, we're always happy to work with them and talk to them and communicate. We want to make sure that one hand is talking to the other. Everybody should have that integrated team. So what can we do to protect your family and to preserve your hard-earned legacy? What are some steps? We threw a lot at you. Your head might be spinning, right? We talked about estate taxes and local, state and local taxes. We talked about capital gains taxes. We talked about the Congress. What can you do? What are some steps you should take right now? First, make sure your core estate plan is up to date. When was the last time you looked at it? What does your trust even say? What structure do you have? Do you even know if you have an AB or non-AB trust? Who'd you name as backup trustees? Is it properly structured? Depending on, if you're married, the structure of your living trust could have a 6 or even 7-figure impact on taxes for your kids, even if you're not high net worth or don't consider yourself high net worth. Does your durable power of attorney for finances, has it been updated in the last 5 years? Does it allow for tax planning? Does it allow for support for your kids? Did you create family protection trusts for your kids? Are you going to protect their inherited assets from divorces, future estate taxes, maybe give some protection against lawsuits? Have you thought about Prop 19? And have you been aware of it? Did you even know it was an issue? Are you worried about keeping those low taxes for your future generations? If you are single, not married, and your estate is over $6 million, or if you're a couple, and these are big numbers, if you're a couple with an estate and your estate includes equity in your home, life insurance benefits, retirement accounts, anything you might inherit in the future. So your estate may be bigger than you think. If you're at these levels, we need to talk and just be prepared, because as Mike and I talked about, we don't know where estate tax laws are going at the end of this year. We think the exemption will probably stay at approximately where it is, but we might not know until November or December, depending on how quickly Congress and the Senate act. So let's be ahead of this. Let's talk. If you're in these categories, we can at least get things ready to go. In the past, we've had clients who said, hey, let's put these structures in place, but I'm not going to sign them unless and until I see a need to do it. So you're ready to go. And I just want to emphasize this again. If you own California real estate, primary residence, rental property, business property, and if your assessed values, your property taxes are significantly lower than the fair market value, we need to talk about property tax planning. We talked about those numbers. It can be a 6 or 7-figure issue for your kids, and it might be the only way that your kids can stay in the area unless they're making a ton of money, right? So if you want your kids to have the option of staying in the area or keeping that rental property, we may need to talk about property tax planning. There's a lot that we can do. We're helping a lot of families in California with this. So let's circle back. The 3 points that I made at the beginning. Hope is not a strategy. Let's control what we can control. And there are a few high leverage moments in life and high leverage decisions and steps you can take. And the issues we covered here today absolutely fall in those categories. Let's not hope that laws change in a way that bails us out. It's easy to say, harder to do. There's a lot we can't control in the world. You might be incredibly angry about how the elections turned out. You might be thrilled. They happened, right? It is what it is. What can we control now? Let's focus on that, what we can do to protect ourselves and our families. And these are high leverage decisions. So we want to be part of that. We want to be part of your team. We want to help provide education and guidance as we are here. But if you want to work with us, we can certainly do so. You can follow us online. So if you're watching this on YouTube or watching the recording, we're Gilfix Law on YouTube. We're over 4,000 subscribers at the time of this and growing every day. I have an Instagram channel I'm putting short videos on. There's Instagram youtube.com/Mark Gilfix. Just started that a couple months ago. I'm going to get doing more short videos there. And our YouTube channel has short videos, long videos, webinars. So there's a lot there. Most importantly, if you want to take action, don't miss this opportunity. While this is top of mind, I just encourage you to take action. I hope it's with us. It doesn't have to be with us, of course. We're not the only experts, but I think we do truly have unique expertise in bringing this all together, and expertise in estate planning, elder law, property tax planning, estate tax planning, and we think about this holistically. This is what we live and breathe. So if you're an existing client, hey, let's set a review meeting. Let's go over your situation. If you want to talk about property tax issues, maybe you're not sure if you need to do that planning, let's talk about it. We can very quickly go through your situation and come up with hey, here are your options, or hey, maybe you don't need to do this, maybe you absolutely need to do this. Contact us. You can call our team at 650-493-8070, gilfix.com to contact us. We have a page where you can enter kind of specifics of what you're looking for, gilfix.com/my needs. Easy to find us though. Gilfix and Lopole Associates. You can Google us. We're all over the place. But gilfix.com is our website. So don't miss this opportunity. If it's nothing more than setting a meeting, if you're not sure if you need to do anything, set that meeting. We can do a planning meeting. We do typically bill, when we're sitting down for planning meetings, we do bill hourly for those because we want to deliver value right away. Sometimes we can do quick calls to see if we're a fit. So contact us though. If you're an existing client, let's do that let's do a check-in. And if you're not, we would love to get to know you. And we don't see estate planning as a one-off. We see this as something that will evolve over time. We want to be part of your team and maybe part of an integrated team. So lots we went over here today. I think we'll take just a couple of questions. We had a few come through, and we thank you guys so much for being here. We hope you got a lot out of this. Spread the word. If there's someone in your circle who doesn't even know about the property tax issue or doesn't know about these issues, we can always chat with them. A lot of people don't even realize that property taxes might go up 1,000 or 5,000% when they inherit from their parents or grandparents. So we have tools for that. Mike, any closing thoughts before we go to a couple questions?
No, I think we've been pretty clear. The impact on a family is off the charts in terms of benefit received, and we take it as a personal failure if one of our clients is exposed to the estate tax when we could have avoided it, when the kids have to deal with property taxes when we could have avoided it. So, it's just being logical. Don't put it off. Inertia is our biggest enemy. I'll sure emphasize that. And I got to tell you, Mark, two of the questions we have are just excellent that I'm eager to address. So should I just do that now?
Let's jump into some questions.
Let's do that. Okay.
Just a couple of minutes and we'll wrap it up.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Leslie asks, she says, I know that putting the home, basically, she says, I know that using an LLC, putting the in and out of the LLC is what you recommend. She says, I asked another estate planning attorney and they said they didn't think it would work. Well, it isn't just creating an LLC, putting it in, taking it out. I mean, far more complicated. There's multiple steps. And respectfully to the other attorney, I mean, that's right. If you just did that, it would not work. But it's not that simple. And we do not go through every tedious step. Number one, every plan is different. And number two, our knowledge is the product of decades of experience and knowledge. So don't
try it at home. Yeah, we have some clients be like, I think I have an idea. We're gonna do some stuff. Don't try this at home. If you screw up one step in the process, you might have an immediate and irrevocable increase in property taxes of 1,000%. So yes, it's a complicated process. It really is. Francis Lopole on our team, he is the guru who leads this for every client.
And let's add that we have successfully concluded the process for many clients successfully.
Yeah.
So it works.
And laws can change, rules can change. So, we can't make a 100% guarantee, but yes.
Second question is if you establish a dynasty trust for the benefit of a child, and then they take the money out of that trust, and then they have a divorce, could that money be exposed to community property treatment and losing half of it? Absolutely, yes. If your child is the trustee and she decides for whatever reason to take money out of that trust, well, you've lost all those protections. Yep. So on one occasion out of hundreds, we did see a child not want to use that trust and took the money out. She was single. That was one of the issues. But if you don't leave the money in the trust, you obviously do not get the benefits and protections of that trust. That makes another point to me. When we do our planning, ideally we do it multi-generationally. So we talk with your kids, not just you. We have 2 or 3 generations here in the office. And we have those perspectives. So, very, very good question. You have to respect the tools that you use to make them effective.
And Dorothy, thank you for the note about my health and my wife's health. We
Mm,
really appreciate it. Paul, thank you for the note. We were glad to provide good information. We hope it was. A good question here, I think, on the Prop 19 example. If your property tax without planning, let's say, resulted in an increase of only $5,000 per year, we talked about 25, 35. Should the situation be addressed? It's personal, right? I think we'd want to go over it. If it's a small increase, small is relative to every family, but it really depends on your situation. I mean, there's a lot of factors. Are you thinking about you might sell the property in the future? Where are your kids at financially? Because it is a lot of work, and some of the work is irrevocable in a way. I mean, there's a lot of flexibility once we do the work, but so I think we'd want to talk about it. If it's a small property tax increase without planning, maybe it's not worth doing. But it's very relative. Once you get in that $10,000, $15,000 a year increase, and we think it gets into closer to that no-brainer territory for many families. Will the
so,
seminar be posted to YouTube? I think it's actually streaming on YouTube. I'm not sure. I checked. I had to close the window because it was repeating back to me. But yes, even if it's not on YouTube already, we will be posting a version of this to YouTube. So check out the Gilfix Law YouTube channel for this and for more. I think we're going to wrap it up there. Mike, any other questions you want to address?
well, let's just say that a couple of the questions asked are so broad that they're addressing other topics that we can address individually, but beyond the scope of today's seminar. We're looking at legislation, the impact, what do you have to think about? So some of the questions, again, about foreign assets and how do you treat assets in other states and all of that, I mean, and a number of other points. Of course, we can deal with those, but that's not today's topic. So let's just thank everybody
Yeah.
for being here. Mark and I enjoy doing this. We love sharing information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One last question, because from Leslie, I think this is relevant. My
Yeah.
dad is 91 years old. How long does the property tax process take? It takes a few months. We can sometimes try to accelerate it if someone is in poor health or things like that, but it does take several months to complete. So talk to us right away if this is a concern and you have a family member who may not have that much time. I mean, let's face it, we got to be real about this. So thank you guys so much. Great questions. We probably could stay around for a bit longer, but
I
and
think
thank you
so.
all for turning out. We're going to be look for on our website gilfix.com for some in-person talks. We're going to be scheduling in coming weeks and months, and we're going to keep an eye on this. So stay tuned as we learn. We're going to share that with our community. So as we see what's happening with tax laws, we will shout it from the rooftops to our community. So thank you so much. Spread the word. Share this with anybody who could benefit from it. And I hope everybody's staying safe, sane, and healthy, as my mom likes to say. And be well.
All right. Take care.